Hey guys, Leo Kelly G, and does your guitar sound like this? Or this? Or maybe it sounds like this, but when you play it up here, it sounds like this. Today, I want to talk about tuning your guitar, some different ways you can tune it and the pros and cons of each method, and some of the mistakes and pitfalls that people make even up to a professional level that you can hopefully avoid if you apply what you learn in this video so you can stay in tune. Let's get to it. So the first and most obvious way of tuning a guitar is to use a guitar tuner. Unless you're one of the 1 in 10,000 people with perfect pitch, you won't be able to recognize the pitch of the string you're playing just by listening to it. I use the ClearTune Tuner, which is an app you can download in the App Store, and as you can hopefully see up here over my right shoulder, as I play a note, it gives me not only the pitch of the note itself, but how many cents that it's sharp or flat by. And so if I tune my guitar to the tuner, you can see if I play a few chords, the guitar is mostly in tune. One thing you will need to know about tuners, however, is that they're only good if you can correctly interpret the information they're giving you. And so if you don't know the pitch you're aiming for, or whether the tuner is telling you the string is sharp or flat, or even worse, you have the right pitch but the wrong octave, you can end up either tuning the string to the wrong pitch, and so the guitar is out of tune, or you end up over-tightening the string trying to reach the wrong octave, and it will snap and hit you in the face, which has happened many times throughout my playing career. An easy way around both of these issues is A, learning the names of the notes on the strings, and any acronym of E, A, D, G, B, E will help you with that. My personal favorite is Even Able Dads Go Bald Eventually, sometimes before they're even dads. And B, to use a tuner that has the option of playing the pitch that you're aiming for so that you can match the pitch of your string to the note on the app to get you in tune nice and quickly. A good example of this would be Guitar Tuner for musicians, spelled T-U-N-A, like the fish, and G-U-I-T-A-R, like the guitar, which not only gives you the pitch that you're aiming for, as you can hear, but also gives you this little ding noise when you get the right pitch as well, which can be really, really useful when you're just starting out if you're not sure if you've matched the pitch or not. And it also tells you if the note is sharp or flat, which will be really useful when you're just starting out too. So the advantage of using a tuner is that provided you can interpret it correctly, every string will be in tune, which is really, really handy for playing with different people because you'll all be singing from the same hymn sheet or playing from the same tune sheet, so to speak. The disadvantage of relying solely on a tuner is that the guitar is not an equally tempered instrument, and also depending on how well the guitar's made, how well it's been set up, and how well the intonation on the guitar actually rings out and works, even though the guitar is in tune using a tuner, and according to the tuner all the strings are in tune, if you play certain chords, it still might sound ever so slightly out, and so it's something that's worth bearing in mind. So if I play, for example, this E power chord here, with the two ringing E and B strings at the top ringing out as well, you've got two strings or two pairs of strings that are both playing in unison. And so if I play the B note on the 9th fret of the D string, and then the open B note, you can hear that one's ever so slightly sharper than the other. So here's my B note that's been tuned to the tuner. And then here you've got my B note playing on the D string. And so you can see on the tuner it's ever so slightly sharper, and so it creates an ever so slight dissonance that you can hear. And then if I play the E note on the 9th fret of the G string, you can hear the same thing. And then here's the open E. So here you can hear the open E is slightly sharper than the 9th fret of the G string. And that's just to do with the intonation of this guitar, that when you play certain notes, they're going to sound sharper or flatter, even though they're technically the same note that you're playing as an open string. Or if you're playing any other notes that happen to be the same pitch, sometimes you'll have ever so slight discrepancies, and that's just to do with the idiosyncrasies of your own instrument. And that'll be different for every instrument depending on where you play it, depending on how hot or cold it is, and depending on how old the strings are as well. And so even though you can use a tuner to get your strings in tune perfectly as open strings, it can be a problem playing higher up the neck and also playing different chords as well. So definitely something to watch out for. The second way of tuning your guitar is using harmonics. For those of you who don't know what a harmonic is, it's essentially taking a note and then splitting the frequency at a given point on the string to create a different note instead. If you're curious about how to actually play harmonics themselves, you basically rest your finger over where the harmonic naturally sits. So the 3 strongest harmonics are on the 12th fret, the 7th fret, and the 5th fret of any string, and then just playing the string while lightly resting your finger over the string as opposed to pushing it down and actually fretting the note. So you have the 12th fret here, which is an octave, the 7th fret, which is a 5th above the octave, so a 12th, I suppose you could say, and then the 5th fret, which is 2 octaves above the original note you're playing. The advantage of using harmonics is that it circumvents the need for a tuner. As long as you've got one string you're going to tune off, then you can get all of the other strings in pitch in relation to that string, and you can get your guitar in tune if the battery runs out on your tuner or if you haven't got a tuner nearby. The disadvantage is that you still need a tuner to get one of the strings in tune to tune everything else off of. And if you've got a tuner, you might as well use it for all the other strings instead of using harmonics. It'll be much faster and a lot more in tune as well. The second disadvantage of using harmonics is that they don't correspond to the notes on the tuner. And so if you tune using harmonics, every single time you'll push the note ever so slightly sharper than the tuner will put it, and that compounds, and then by the time you get to the sixth string that you're tuning, it will be quite a lot sharper than the rest of the strings. And so if I tune using harmonics now, you can hear, even though the guitar was in tune, in correspondence with the tuner. And then here I can either tune using the 7th fret of the E string and the open B string. And again, you can hear that B string sounds flat now. And then the high E string. And you can hear now that's really, really flat. And so now if I play the chords, they sound okay with some chords, so the E sounds fine, but if I play the G, you can hear that the B and the G sound quite sharp, and if I play that E chord that I played earlier as well, you can now really hear you've got this, the B string's a lot sharper, and the E, again, quite a bit sharper as well. So harmonics can be useful in that they'll get your guitar roughly in tune if you haven't got a tuner. However, if you have got a tuner, I'd recommend using that instead, because as you can hear, the harmonics push each note ever so slightly sharp, and that compounds over the tuning process, leading to the strings at the top being a lot sharper and out of tune than the strings at the bottom. The third and final way to tune your guitar is to use your ear. Now, to begin with, this is going to be really difficult if your ear's not used to hearing what a guitar sounds like when it's in tune. And so I'd recommend to begin with using a tuner to get your ear used to the sound of a guitar being in tune and getting used to what each of the individual strings sound like, and then also getting used to the sound of those strings sounding the way they do. Although 9,999 people in 10,000 don't have perfect pitch, a lot of people, musicians in particular, can learn to remember the sound of certain pitches, and you can use those as a reference point to work other pitches out. And so if you hear this note enough times, and you hear something that's ever so slightly not it, you can start to recognize the sound of the pitch itself and get it back in tune again. The other thing that you might notice is that certain songs you play might sound out of tune even though you know your guitar's in tune, and there can be a lot of different reasons for this. One of them can just be the intonation on your guitar, which we talked about earlier, or certain idiosyncrasies about the instrument, meaning that certain notes just sound sharper or flatter than they do. The other thing can just be the fact that certain chords that you play, just because of the anatomy of your own fingers, will mean that you'll push certain notes sharper or flatter or push them out of tune without even realizing or meaning to. So for example, if you were to play a chord like this, which has got 2 E strings ringing out at the top, a C sharp minor 7th chord, my E string's in tune, but that B string that I'm playing is slightly out, and that's not because the B string itself is out, as you can see. The B string is in tune. Okay, now it's in tune. And so you can hear from that it's my fingers pushing that string ever so slightly sharp just because of the way they're stretching to have to play that chord itself. And so sometimes it can just be the fact that your fingers push certain notes either sharp or they don't hit the note quite right, and so they can end up being flat. And so the more you train your ear, the more you'll be able to recognize when your guitar is in tune and when it's not. And then the more you'll be able to make those little micro adjustments that a tuner doesn't always pick up to get your guitar in tune. And so to summarize, if you're just starting out, I'd recommend getting a tuner that's really clear on whether a note is sharp or flat or not, and also gives you the name of the note you're aiming for so that you know the sound of the note you're trying to reach. If you don't have a tuner for whatever reason, then you can use harmonics. However, I'd only use that as a last resort. As you can hear, it pushes the strings sharp and your guitar will end up being actually out of tune as opposed to in tune with a tuner. And then finally, I'd recommend developing your ear to get used to the sound of a guitar in tune, so you can start relying on what's in your head as opposed to what's on a tuner to get you playing guitar. So that was my video on some different ways you can tune your guitar. If you found it useful, it would mean the world if you could give this video a like, subscribe to the channel and push the notification bell so you stay up to date with any new videos and content that I make. And if you're feeling really generous, head over to patreon.com/LKGguitar and consider becoming a patron, where you can contribute to me making even more content to help you along your musical journey to becoming the best musician you can be. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.